Hello and welcome back to another Helldivers discussion video, where today I'm going to be talking about the Vox engine, which I believe to be the most unbalanced enemy in the game currently. And I'm not just talking about it being overpowered either. The script for this video started with a simple conclusion of, yeah, just lower the spawn rate and it's golden. But as I did more research and thought about it more, I realized there was a whole can of worms under the surface, which I hope to bring to light here. Apologies for the background footage being the same as last week's rant, but there aren't any cyborgs to fight at the time of recording, and that was the only cyborg footage that I had on hand, so yeah. First, let's set up some groundwork. Vox engines are an automaton-heavy enemy that replaces factory striders in the cyborg subfaction. They possess two cannons that can fire in powerful bursts at long range and up close, two rocket pods which send out volleys of dozens of missiles that will saturate an area with explosions, and two close-range miniguns. The cannons are mounted on the Vox's body, which can traverse 360 degrees to face an opponent. Despite replacing factory striders in the spawn pool, they are much more common and can spawn in patrols. There are two ways to destroy a Vox engine: reduce its main health pool to 0, or destroy the top or bottom 3 heat sinks on its back in order to open a hatch which a grenade can be tossed into in order to insta-kill it. There appears to be an issue where Vox engines are overly oppressive on these cyborg missions. They're the tankiest and deadliest enemy on the entire automaton front, and they spawn often enough that seeing 4 or more of them at once is not an uncommon sight. Going further into detail on the methods with which you can destroy a Vox engine, I will explain why all but one strategy tends to be ineffective, and how the one effective strategy enforces an unhealthy meta. First, we have the heatsink plus grenade to the vent method. This is achieved by running up under/behind the Vox, taking out the 3 heat sinks, either the 3 on the bottom or the 3 on the top, and throwing a grenade into a vent which will open once 3 heat sinks are destroyed. This will instantly kill the Vox regardless of its health. Practically any loadout can utilize this method, as the heat sinks only have light armor, and any grenade will do. This is a high-risk, high-reward method, as it requires the player to get in close past the miniguns, which can be destroyed by medium-pin weapons to assist in this, and contend with any other bots around while they are focused on popping the heat sinks and landing the grenade shot. On its face, it appears to be a very effective and low-cost method to take down Vox engines. But when there are 2 to 4 Voxes in a fight, it becomes near impossible to pull off, as other Voxes will relentlessly pummel you while you try to focus on one of them. Second, we have the tried and true strategy of chucking everything including the kitchen sink at it. I'm talking orbital barrages, 500 kilogram bombs, every big boom you've got. Brute forcing a Vox engine's health pool in this way can work on one Vox engine, but once again we quickly run into an issue where there's more than one, which there usually is. And now you may have multiple high cooldown stratagems that you can't use for another few minutes while the remaining Voxes ragdoll you all the way to Cyberstan. Third, we have old-fashioned AT. Disposable anti-tank weapons and the Quasar cannon lack the DPS to tackle Voxes, leaving the recoilless rifle and spear as the only viable options in this category. This can be fairly effective, as shooting a Vox anywhere in its body will kill it in 4 recoilless shots and 3 spear shots. But then we have to consider how long the stationary reload for these weapons are, which makes this a time-consuming method that leaves you vulnerable while reloading. Now, with a coordinated teammate, you can team reload to massively increase your DPS, but at the same time, if the Vox is focused on you, this can become impossible without getting blown to bits. But then we also have the consideration that you're using practically all of your backpack ammo to kill this one unit. So all of this assumes that you haven't had to use your AT against tanks, war striders, gunships, etc. And once again, we have the elephant in the room. You're often dealing with 2 to 4 Voxes. Even if you, and maybe a team reloading friend, manage to kill one, you are now practically out of ammo and facing 1 to 3 more Voxes. And finally, we have what I'll call the 1-2 method, which is the most effective strategy to deal with Voxes and the only one which can deal with multiple Voxes at a time. This involves using an extremely high damage stratagem to put the Vox engine on the verge of death and then finishing it off with a single shot from a standard AT weapon. The Solo Silo, Leveler, and Orbital Rail Cannon Strike are the only stratagems powerful enough to perform the Alpha Strike. Meanwhile, any AT like the Recoilless or Eat can be used as the finishing blow. When running all 3 powerful stratagems, plus something like the Recoilless, you can effectively kill up to 3 Voxes in rapid succession single-handedly. This is by far the best loadout to deal with Voxes by a huge margin. Nothing else even comes close in terms of time to kill and ammo efficiency, and that right there is where the problem lies. Only this exact loadout is capable of handling Voxes in the numbers at which they spawn, crushing loadout variety and putting players that don't have the war bonds associated with the Solo Silo and Leveler at a severe disadvantage. So how do we solve this? Well, the problem seems obvious. All of the other strategies don't work when there's too many Vox engines around. So let's say we reduce their spawns, maybe remove them from bot drops, patrols, etc. So now players are only typically met with 1 to 2 Voxes at a time. Okay, how does that play out? The heatsink plus vent strategy, the kitchen sink strategy, and the standard AT strategy all become viable because the one factor holding them back has been removed. Now you might be thinking, hold on, won't the 1-2 strategy be overpowered now, since one player can effectively shut down every Vox engine that their team will encounter? And you do have a point, but consider that someone has to dedicate their entire loadout to this strategy in order for it to work, sacrificing utility and chaff clear in the process. So they are making some kind of sacrifice and trade-off. You will still have people occasionally bringing anti-Vox loadouts in the same way that we have whale hunters for Leviathans, but it won't be a loadout that is absolutely necessary as it currently is. With Voxes no longer being as overwhelmingly oppressive, there will be far less demand for a dedicated anti-Vox loadout, which will, paradoxically, make individual Voxes more difficult to deal with on average, because less people will be bringing the most effective weapons against them. In the end, we get much more loadout variety on Cyborg missions, while not even touching the stats of the Vox engine itself. Originally, I thought this would be the conclusion of the video, but oh no. As I did more research, I realized that even once the spawn rate is reduced, there is a deeper issue at the heart of the Vox engine that prevents it from being a well-designed enemy. It lacks interactivity, and it doesn't know what it wants to be. Allow me to explain. Vox engines outright replace factory striders on Cyborg missions. They spawn in the same places that factory striders would otherwise spawn. They actually spawn more often than factory striders. A Vox's main health pool is 11,000, and a factory strider's main health pool is 10,000. With all of this in mind, you would think that Voxes were kind of a side grade of factory striders, a more difficult variant in the same class of enemy, like what war striders are to hulks. And yet, fighting a Vox engine feels nothing like fighting a factory strider, and not in a good way. When it comes to disabling a Vox engine, you can destroy its cannons, rocket pods, and miniguns, but there is really no incentive to disable anything but the miniguns. The cannons have 8,000 health and carry no damage dealt into the main health pool, meaning it takes a total of 3 recoilless shots and 2 spear shots to destroy a single cannon, and 6 recoilless shots and 4 spear shots to disable both of them. Mind you, this is the entire backpack for both of these weapons. Meanwhile, killing the Vox outright only takes 4 and 3 shots respectively. It would take 12 and 7 shots respectively to disable both cannons and then proceed to kill the Vox. The rocket pods are only half of its arsenal, and are only visible from the back. Sure, you can destroy them with a few shots from a medium pin support weapon, but given the danger of the practically indestructible cannons and how you need AT to do anything to the Vox anyways, that means that you're just better off trying to kill the Vox outright here as well. The miniguns are the one thing that is worthwhile to disable, because a few shots with a medium pin weapon will prevent them from mowing you down at close range, allowing you to go for the heatsink plus vent strategy. On top of all of this, destroying the treads doesn't disable its ability to move, like with tanks, and you cannot strip armor with AT to reveal weak spots. When you boil it down, there are only two ways to kill a Vox engine. You deplete its main health pool, or you throw a grenade into its vents. That's it. No in between. This lack of interactivity is in direct contrast with the Factory Strider. When it comes to disabling one, you are heavily incentivized to take out its chin guns and cannon turret. The chin guns will absolutely shred you at close range and only take a few shots with medium penetration weapons to disable. They guard the single greatest vulnerability of the Factory Strider, its belly doors, so it is a very good idea to take them out so that you can exploit that weakness. The cannon has 900 health, allowing it to be disabled with one shot of any AT. The cannon can snipe you and your teammates from great distances, so it is almost always a good idea to disable it to ease the pressure that the Factory Strider is exerting on your team. Killing a Factory Strider outright only takes one AT shot to a few very small fatal weak points, or 2 shots if you strip its armor with AT and then focus fire on the same spot. Oh, and that is something else to note. Factory Striders have 4 lethal breakpoints: the face/eye, the underside of the neck, the leg joints, and the belly doors, which have between 1,200 to 2,500 health. And the non-lethal armored parts of it, the head, neck, front, side, rear, and leg armor, possess health values between 800 to 2,200, and can be stripped away by AT to reveal their own respective lethal breakpoints, with health values between 1,200 and 2,500. A Factory Strider will almost never die due to its main health pool being depleted. You have to be actively avoiding going for the kill in order to do that. These two units could not be more different. One has a massive health pool that must be depleted by just randomly firing anywhere on its body, with no concern for aiming for weak points or scoring consecutive hits in the same spot. And the other is entirely designed around rewarding good aim and game knowledge by exploiting vulnerabilities and creating vulnerabilities. One has weapons that are completely impractical to disable, and the other greatly encourages players to focus on disabling before going in for the kill. The Vox engine's design is completely at odds with the Factory Strider, but very similar to another enemy that can be found on the Illuminate front. Enter the Leviathan, which has a main health pool of 15,000 to the Vox's 10,000. But you will notice it has no particular weak spots and can only be killed by depleting its main health pool, just like the Vox. It has 4 turrets, which can be harmed by medium pin, but are pretty beefy at 1,500 health each, so it's typically better to disable them by proxy by destroying the front fins, which have 5,500 health, requiring 2 AT shots to destroy. Damage done to the front fins also transfers to the Leviathan's main health pool, but does not overflow on the shot which destroys the part, meaning that destroying a fin effectively costs 1 more shot to destroy the Leviathan itself. Funny enough, this makes the Leviathan more interactive than the Vox engine, because you can save a shot if you avoid targeting the fins, or prioritize the fins to disable its weaponry at the cost of 1 more AT shot. And after looking at this, I made the realization, Voxes play like Leviathans that spawn as normal enemies rather than a map hazard. Think about it. You fight Voxes and Leviathans the exact same way, just launching as much AT at it as you can without any concern for where you're aiming until you deplete its main health pool. Let's just do a quick comparison. To fight a Factory Strider with AT, you hit it in a weak spot with 1 Quasar Cannon, EAT, or recoilless shot, or you take 2 shots with these weapons or the Spear in order to strip off a chunk of armor and exploits the revealed weak spot. And of course, I didn't forget the Commando, which can take out a weak spot in 2 to 3 shots, but not strip armor and then successfully exploit a weak spot with its remaining shots. To fight a Vox engine with AT, you hit it anywhere with 4 recoilless shots or 3 spear shots. All other AT does not possess the DPS to be effective. To fight a Leviathan with AT, you hit anywhere with 5 to 6 recoilless shots or 4 to 5 spear shots. All other AT does not possess the DPS to be effective. Vox engines are just Leviathans in a trench coat. And that is the fundamental issue with the Vox engine as an enemy, what prevents it from being well designed or balanced. It doesn't know if it wants to be a factory strider or a Leviathan. So what's the solution? I have come up with 3 different Vox engine reworks, ordered, to the best of my knowledge, from easiest to hardest to implement, which would, theoretically, solve this issue. Solution 1. Choose to be a Leviathan equivalent. This is the simplest of solutions and very similar to my original conclusion. Instead of just lowering Vox engine spawns, we make them a mission modifier, exactly like Leviathans. If Vox engines play exactly like Leviathans, then make them spawn exactly like Leviathans. We don't have to mess with its stats, we just stick a band-aid on the issue and Cyborg missions immediately play better than they did before. Solution 2. Choose to be a Factory Strider equivalent. In order for Vox engines to remain in their current spawn rates and/or directly replace Factory Striders in all instances that Factory Striders would otherwise show up, the Vox engine must have a similar level of interactivity. The Vox's cannons would need to be reduced in health to the point that 1 to 2 AT shots can disable them, in order to make them a viable target. Depending on what value this is set to, this could function as a major buff to the spear as well, if it is capable of one-shotting them and the recoilless and other AT are not. The sarcophagus part would need to be lethal when destroyed in order to create a weak spot which allows you to kill a Vox in 1 less AT shot if you focus on it. Once again, this would function as a major buff to the spear in particular. And disabling tracks should result in a mobility kill in the same way that automaton tanks function. Adding this interactivity makes the Vox engine a far more engaging enemy to fight. Its tracks can be disabled to immobilize it so that the player can flee or better utilize stratagems to destroy it. Cannons can feasibly be destroyed in order to lighten the pressure it exerts on you and your team. It allows for skill expression by giving players the option to kill the Vox slightly more efficiently if you aim for the sarcophagus. And finally, it can give the spear a new niche as the hard counter to Vox engines. Solution 3. The Über Vox engine. This solution is a combination of solutions 1 and 2, would be the hardest to implement, and is genuinely insane, but I would love to see it. To start off, we make the Vox engine a modifier like Leviathan's, but turn it into a true map hazard worthy of that level. Buff its health to be equivalent to that of a Leviathan. Nerf its cannon health to take 2 to 3 AT shots to destroy. Remove the 2 miniguns and replace them with a minigun on top of every tread for a total of 4. Remove the Vent insta-kill, and instead have it deal damage equivalent to half of the Vox's total health, requiring the player to disable all heat sinks and land a grenade in both vents in order to destroy it that way. Make the sarcophagus lethal when destroyed, and destroying tracks a mobility kill, but buff their health to be more in line with the other buffed stats. And last but not least, give it the Cyborg Agitator's ability to buff automaton chaff, which can be disabled by destroying the speakers on top of the Vox engine. Behold, the Über Vox engine, a true map hazard and proper mini-boss for the automaton front. If this thing aggroes on you when you're unprepared, it is going to mop the floor with you. Trying to take it on alone is foolhardy, but a coordinated team can work to disable or kill it effectively. When you see it, you're either hiding until it passes or waiting for the perfect moment to strike with your teammates. And this extreme power is balanced by the fact only 1 or 2 can exist on the entire map at a time, slowly rolling into and out of the combat area, like how Leviathans do. Personally, my preference for these solutions goes 3, 2, and then 1, but any of these solutions would do the job of putting the Vox engine in a proper niche and making it more fun and balanced to fight. In conclusion, the Vox engine is an unbalanced enemy, and that is not just because of how powerful it is. In the immediate, we have the issue of its high spawn rate resulting in a restricted and unhealthy meta, but deeper down we have fundamental flaws that make it an unfun enemy to fight and compounds its other issues. Lowering spawn rates would be an improvement, but it is a band-aid on a wound that requires surgery. The Vox engine can only reach its true potential as a fun, unique, and balanced enemy if it undergoes a major rework. Otherwise, it will forever remain a Leviathan in a trench coat. If you have anything to add, feel free to leave a comment down below if you agree with me, and especially if you disagree with me. I make these videos not only to put my thoughts out there, but to start conversations. Thank you for watching up to this point, and I will see you next time.